Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and my name is Palmy, and in today's video we're going to look at how we can create those wonderful glows and glaze effects in Daz Studio. Now before we start the video, I just want to say I may have overused the word cool too much in the video, so just be prepared for that. Having said that, let's get to the video. Right, so here we are in Daz Studio, and today we're going to be looking at those wonderful glowing effects from the sun that you can get, that you've seen in movies, that you have seen in photos, that you've seen in magazines maybe, and we're going to do everything and all of that in Daz Studio with no Photoshop. So the first thing here, I've got my environment here. You could have any environment you want. You could have any prop you want as well, because we're going to be using the sun sky. So what I need to do now, I've got my prop wall here, which is like this mountain range area, and I'm going to change my environment mode to sun sky. So into my render settings, into my environment, and change that to sun sky. Okay, and I need to put the render, the iRay preview on so we can see what is happening exactly. And because it's sun sky, the actual preview will be very, very quick, which is kind of cool. So if you do have a machine that's a bit slower, this will not be not that resource intensive on your machine. So first I want to do is, where do you want my position of the sun to be? So I want my sun to be somewhere around here, where these cliffs are, these mountains, somewhere here. So the first thing I want to do though, before I do anything else, is I want the actual sunlight to be the correct sunlight. So I've done this in my other tutorial, which I'll link over here in the card, about the sun sky environment. And if I go down here in the settings, the SSS RGB unit conversion, the ideal value was 0.318. That's the ideal value that you should have, so you can see the actual sun. It's explained in that tutorial, so you want to check that tutorial. I'll put in the card up here. But anyway, let's continue with this tutorial. So now I want my sun to be here, so I need to use my dome rotation and move that around. So where's my sun? There it is. There's my sun. Okay, and I want to bring it down. So if I want to bring it down, I can use the latitude and longitude to bring it down. So I'm going to bring that down. I just want my sun there. The longitude as well, so I can play with the direction where do I want it exactly. Something like that looks okay. That looks kind of cool. Kind of like a sunrise sunset thing going on, which is kind of cool. So I've got my setting there, which is, I'm happy there. So I've positioned my sunlight where I want it. And now we're going to do our actual glowing effect. So my glowing effects is called Bloom, and that's in render settings and filtering. And it's here, Bloom filter enable. I turned that on. And you'll see straight away it started to glow. Now these are the default values here, and we're going to change these obviously. Bloom filter radius, bloom filter threshold, and bloom filter brightness scale. Now the first thing we're going to do is, you can see here the actual bloom is far too much. You can see that everything's kind of washed out. So the first thing you need to do is focus on the bloom filter threshold. You want to start off with a value of 10,000, which is like a good starting value. So I'm going to do 10,000. It's a very good starting value, and you'll see it change. It might take a while to change, but it will change. So there we go. It's less of that bloom effect, it's less washed out and everything, which is great. So the next thing we're going to do now is the actual bloom filter radius. Now the bloom filter radius is how much of the glowing effect do you want, basically, the glowing effect. So the default value is 0.05. A good starting value for this as well is about 0.3. It's a very good starting value. And you can see the bloom effect is very, very high at the moment. We're going to adjust that obviously, so you can see that the sun's got a lot of bloom on there, which is fine. So what we're going to do now is the bloom filter brightness scale. Now this is the brightness. So at the moment you can see 1 is the default value. It's very, very bright. I'm going to reduce that, and a good value for that is 0.3 to start off with. So 0.3, and you can see the difference straight away. The brightness has gone down. So now we've got this really, really cool effect here. The only problem now is that the sun is far too big. We've got like one of those really, really cool effects you see in movies, that you see in TV programs, etc. So we've got the really cool effect. At the moment, this is not the effect I want. I want it to be less subtle, basically. This is too much in my face, so to speak. So I want to reduce these values. So bloom filter radius, I'm going to bring that down even more, maybe 0.1, and see what that does. There we go. So that's made the sun a lot smaller there. And the brightness scale, I will bring that down a lot as well. So probably 0.05. I'm going to go down very low. So there you go. Okay, and what I can do now is I can bring down the threshold actually. So 10,000 was probably a bit too high, and bring that down to about 7,000. Let's see what that looks like. So it takes a while for it to kick in. Just give it a second to kick in. So there's that glow effect. There you go, it's kicked in now, the threshold. So there you can see the threshold. So obviously if I went down very, very low, if I went down to 1000, you'll see like you'll get this really strange color process happening as soon as it kicks in. So this idea, this way to get the kind of glowing effect is very, very cool. When you have one or two light, when you have one main light, like a sun, for example, if we have indoors, if we have, so you can see now because the threshold is so low, everything seems all washed out and dull. So that's why you don't want to go too low. So you want to have you want to have a pretty high value for this. Yeah. So as I was explaining, if you have like lots of lights in your indoor scenes, I can use this as well. You do get the issue of if you have one overpowering light, this will basically do the settings for all the lights in your scene. So even if you have a point light, a spotlight, and some emissions, it will basically control all of them using this. So you have to be very careful when you're using this. It's not very good for several lights. It's very good for, say, one main light. Like example, you got the sun. So we got the sun here. I'm still not happy with that effect really. So what I'm going to do is reduce the blue filter radius even more. I'm going to go to 0.05. So we can get that effect. So that's my effect there. What I'm going to do now actually is go higher. I'm going to go to 0.3. Just wait for that to kick in. And while that's waiting to kick in, what I'm going to do is go back to my environment. I'm going to play around with the latitude, longitude a bit more actually. So I'm going to bring that down a bit more. There we go. So we've got a really, really cool effect now with our sun there. And I'm going to bring it down a bit more there. And I'm going to do longitude a bit more. There we go. So now we've got a really cool sun glowing effect there. Really cool. So if I go back to the filtering, you can see what the settings are. So if I put the brightness up a bit more, if I went to 0.1, you'll see it will just get very, very bright like that. And that's that really, really cool effect that you see in movies. So what I can do now is go back to my environment. I can actually go down a bit more and I can actually play a bit more with the settings. So for example, the sun disk scale, if I wanted more softer light, I could increase that. So at the moment it's 4. If I do 10, you'll see that it will get very, very soft. You'll see the surrounding light here. It will get very, very soft. You see when I go to 20, see how soft it's gone, the actual sunlight. So that's what sun disk scale does. So if you want softer shadows, that's what you would do. So in this case we don't. I'm happy with that. I could go down a bit more. We could do SSS haze. So this will bring like a really, really cool effect here with the haze. You can see that it just reduces the haze, gives a bit of haze there, gives that really cool kind of haze effect as well, which is amplifying our bloom effect as well. So you can play with these settings, see what you can get. We can go with the SSS blue red tint. So if I go to the right, it will give me a bit more red, kind of red sun, a bit more Mars kind of look. If you're trying to do Mars the scene, there you go. And then a blue if you go to the left. So a very different scene with the blue. Get the sky there as well. So set that back to 0. Oops, set that back to 0. Okay, so I've got my bloom effect now. So what else can I do? We can also use a dome, a HDRI map if you want to do the same effect. So we can go to the environment and go to dome only. And we're not going to use this dome here, this one here, it's not very good. So I'm going to go to browse. I'm going to go to my library and I'm going to go to my HDRIs. And the one that I found was this one, Quarry one. It's very, very good, that one is. So again, I need to rotate. Use my rotation to find where the sun is. And because it's a map, it might take a bit longer. There we go, there's our sun for my HDRI map. So that looks kind of good. So I need to go to my filtering and we need to change this. So as you can see, you're going to need different settings for different environments. So as you can see with the sun sky settings, the ones that we use here with the bloom, it's not going to work very well with the HDRI map. So we need to adjust. So again, let's have a look at here. The radius is pretty high. The brightness I need to probably bring down a bit, so we can go to 0.01, see what that looks like. And that actually looks very cool actually. I like that 0.01. I might go down even more actually. Let's go to 0.05. And there we go. So that looks very cool indeed. Again, if you wanted to rotate that even more, so we can go back to environment and we can rotate, dome rotation. So we can go on the x-axis a bit. And you can see I'm bringing it down now. So it's kind of going behind the... it's gone too far behind the mountain there. Let's go back a bit. A bit more. There we go. So probably something like 5, I think, will be behind the mountain. There we go. So we can still play with this. Obviously, this actual HDRI map, it's mainly the sky only. So it's a sky one. It's a HDRI sky only. Although you'll see the bottom bits here on the map, on the HDRI map, that you won't see here because it's covered by our environment. So you can still rotate this if you want to, just like we did with the sun sky environment, which is cool. So I like this effect, really cool effect. We can play around here a bit more. So we can actually go into our tone mapping and we can kind of play with our settings here as well. So for example, we could do burn highlights. So if we do 1, it's made it very, very bright. It's probably a bit too bright, something like 0.5. There we go. So it's made that sun even more brighter using the burn highlights. We could use that. We can use film ISO if you wanted it to be, if you wanted everything to be really bright. So you can go to 200 and it would just be, you know, twice as bright. Basically everything would be. So you can play around all these settings to get the ideal look you're trying to get. We could do vignetting as well, so that will like darken the edges of the screen. So we can do 5. You can see now it's gone darker here on the edges here. So our gaze is more focused on the sun anyway. So that's what's happening with the vignette. And you can see these lovely shadows here as well with the HDRI map. So I'm going to set that back to 0. So another cool effect we can do as well, just to finish off here. It's a very, very short tutorial, but just to finish off here, we can add some extra kind of features to our scene. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually create a new primitive, and I'm going to create a plane. Make sure it's world center, Y positive. The size doesn't matter. 1 meter is fine. One division is fine as well. So okay, and then I'm going to create another one, another primitive, another plane, and I'm going to parent them to the camera. So I'm going to parent them to the camera. Okay, so what that is going to do is when you parent it to the camera, these planes are going to go the position of the camera basically. I'll show you that very shortly. So the first thing I want to do is I want to just position these planes. So I want to put this plane X translate 1, Y translate 1, and Z translate -1. And I'll explain the settings in a bit. And with the plane 2, I want to do the same. X translate -1 though, this time. Y translate 1. And Z translate -1.1. That looks good. Okay. Now we need to go to the surfaces for these. So select both of these. Control click on these so I can get all these settings here. And what I want to do now is actually reduce these settings. So we're basically adding like a filter to our camera, which is going to enhance the glowing effect on our scene. So I don't want any base color, set that to black. I don't want the planes to have any base color. I don't want any glossy layered weight. I don't want any glossy color as well. So turn that to black as well. And I don't want any glossy reflectivity as well. So let's go down a bit more. What I do want is emission colors. So I'm just going to set that to white for now, and then I'll explain what emission color we're going to use. So white for now, and everything else looks good. So what I want to do now is I want to actually, I don't think these planes are correct actually. Let's try it. It should be X rotate 90, sorry. There we go. X rotate 90. There we go. Okay, that's better. So I'll go back to my surfaces, just highlight these. What I want to do now is add a mask to these, which is going to be our transparency mask. So basically for the emission color, I'm going to add my mask, which is in my textures and my plane masks. And the one I want is alpha mask here. So I want the alpha mask there, which is basically a circle with a blur on it, which I did in Photoshop basically. It's a 1000 by 1000 pixel PNG file with a circle in there, and all I did was blur it to give us the effect basically. That's all it is, and it's because it's a transparency mask. So what that means is it's gonna, anything that's black it won't show, and everything that's white it will show, and then anything in between, which is the intermediary values, it will show that as well. Okay, and what I need to do is add that to the luminance. So same thing, alpha mask to that, and I need to add the alpha mask to the cutout opacity. So alpha mask there. The cutout opacity I want 0.5 because I don't want you to cover the whole camera, so 0.5, so we get a bit of see-through now. There we go. And the luminance I'm going to choose K. Now that's going to be too high, so I'm going to just turn that to 10, and that's probably too high as well, but we'll sort that out as well later on. So to add more extra effects, what we're going to do now is for the first plane, which is positioned, I'll show you where it's positioned. If I just get out of texture mode and go into perspective view, you'll be able to see, because I have what we need to do. What I need to do actually is we need to go to parameters, and we just need to scale it down. So for each one of these, something like 5 is good enough. There we go. So you can see now it's like a filter on the lens. So we've got one that's on the left and we've got one that's on the right. So that's what we've done. We've made very, very small planes, and we've cut them out using the alpha mask. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add different colors to these, and we can get a really, really cool effect. So if I go back to my camera one, I'm going to go back to my NVIDIA iRay, put that setting back on. Let's go back to the surfaces and let's sort this out now. So because my sun is on the right, I want the plane that's on the right hand side to have the same color as the sun, which is going to be yellow. So my emission color to be yellow. So the one that was on the right is going to be the first plane, plane 1, because X translate positive is to the right and the plane to positive is to the left. So I want plane 1 to have a yellow color. So a yellow color, something like this should be great. Okay, we can't see at the moment. We're gonna sort that out as well very, very shortly. And plane 2, I'm gonna have the opposite color. So I want something opposite to yellow, which is gonna be a blue purpley kind of color. So blue purple kind of color there, and that looks great. Okay, and now what we need to do is increase the luminance. So probably something like, let's try something like 50. Might be too much. So there you go. You can now see some yellow here, and you can see the blue over here as well. So I might try increasing it a bit more. And this is like adding like a filter to our lens basically, and which is gonna, like, you know, really enhance our bloom effect here, which is really cool. Now you'll see some of this, some of the props you buy, they do have this kind of effect, but a lot more advanced, where they've got like several planes attached to the camera, and they have like different effects to give you that really, really cool kind of like filter effect on the cameras. So there we go. So we've done that now. I could probably go a bit more higher, so maybe 200. Let's see what that looks like. You don't want to go too high because then it starts to get washed out here. So you really need to play with that figure, play with that number for the luminance, and find something that fits. Maybe even 100 is too high. Another way we can control it is if we go to the actual plane and we can go to parameters, we could change the scale. So if I made the scale a bit more bigger, 10, you'll see that it's taken over actually. So 10 is probably too much, probably something like 6. You can see it's starting to overtake. So maybe 5.1, something like that. And that will give you the effect there as well. So maybe if we go 6 on this, it's probably not as bad. It's probably a bit too much actually. 5.1. Okay, so this is what our scene looked like before without the kind of filters on the camera, and when we put the filter on now, you can see it looks a lot different, a lot unique, very, very different, very unique as well. And we've got a really cool sun there with the glow on as well. So that's how we can do it with the sun sky. That's how we can create our glow effects with the sun sky using the bloom filter radius, and that's how we can create it using the HDRI map as well. And as a bonus, this is how we can create using planes like filters for our camera to give us a unique effect as well. Right, so there you have it. That's how you can create glows and glares in Daz Studio using the bloom filter option. And if you found value in this video, if you found it helpful, hit that like button. If you have any comments or questions or anything else you want me to cover in Daz Studio, leave that in the comments down below as well. And if you were paying attention in the video, and if you could write down in the comments as well how many times I said the word cool in the video, leave that down below as well, would be most appreciated. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any cool videos on this channel that will help you on your journey. And before I leave you, I've got my first advanced tutorial on how you can create unique characters in Daz Studio without any 3D modeling experience whatsoever. That's right, we're all going to do it inside Daz Studio. So if it's something that you're interested in, then check out the link in the description box below for that as well. And having said that, I'll see you in next week's video.